Hi there. My name is Deanna Hansen. I'm a certified athletic therapist and the founder of Fluid Isometrics and Block Therapy. And I want to welcome you to Discussions with the Fascia Masters. I am being joined by my nephew and my business partner, Quinn Castellane, and our very special guest, Dr. Karen Kan. Karen is a doctor of light medicine, a #1 international best-selling author, and a visionary of healing, consciousness, and spirituality, and a pioneer in this field. Welcome, Karen. We are honored to have you here.
I'm honored to be here. Thank you.
Oh, our pleasure. So please, Karen, share your story, how you got here, where you started. Give us all the details.
Yeah, well, I'm a conventionally trained medical doctor. So I actually grew up in Canada, in the Toronto area, and went to school in Ottawa and did my Bachelor of Science in biochemistry. And I just absolutely love science and love people and love medicine. Unfortunately, I also was trying to be everything to everyone. And I'm what I call a highly sensitive person or sensitive soul. So I could, empathically feel people's emotions. So I was very popular as well because people felt very cared for. But I would kind of sponge up their negative emotions and absorb them into myself, not knowing I was doing that. And so after years of kind of burdening myself with everyone's negative emotions and trying to rescue them and being codependent, I ended up kind of went down into that deep hole of, fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue syndrome, autoimmune disease, like literally like my immune system was like feeling other people's stuff and going, freaking out. And I got really, really sick and wasn't in the best marriage at the time. And that was my soul calling to me, hey, you need to change. But I needed to get sick, in order to make the change because I was going a mile a minute, driving, 2-3 hours a day to get to this underserved area. I just wanted to be the hero, for these small town people. But my body just couldn't hack it anymore. So I got really sick, had to be partially disabled. And at that point, I actually was even suicidal. And I thought, well, life isn't worth living because I can't be perfect and I can't serve people this way. So I got super, super down. But one night, after crying myself multiple times to sleep, one night I actually woke up sobbing and I heard this voice that said, you have a choice. And I was like, who is this? But it was like my own voice. It was weird. And I thought, I argued with myself. I said, I don't have a choice. And they kept just repeating very, very subtly, very calmly, you have a choice. And I thought, well, if I did have a choice, what could I do? And then, I thought about getting a divorce, and it was like the freakiest choice ever because I knew my parents were going to freak out. My husband was going to freak out. And I was like, no, I can't make that choice. But, I had to make a choice. Either I was going to live or I was going to die. And I chose to live. So I did go through that hard time, which was like some of the best things that I ever did was really finally figure out who am I? What do I need myself instead of what does everybody else need? And so I went on this really amazing healing journey, learning to how to heal myself, nutrition, supplements, Reiki, psychic training, went to workshops to learn more about, myself and my process. And it was an amazing journey. I just love every minute of it. And I got better in 2 years, which, for fibromyalgia, that rarely happens unless they work with you guys, but it rarely happens. And I thought, well, I really need to share this. So I decided to write my first book, which is called Guide to Healing Chronic Pain, a Holistic Approach. And that was before I met you guys. And it was, #1 bestseller. And I was like, wow, this is really awesome. And so I started, seeing more people with that kind of issue, and then realized later on that, wait a second, there's a lot of us out there who are highly sensitive, like empathic, and, feel other people's emotions. So I realized that we had similar issues, chronic pain was one of them, depression, anxiety, another, multiple allergies, which I also didn't mention, but I had as well. And then I realized that, wow, there's something else beyond what I need to learn, because in the chronic pain book, we did talk about, forgiveness and emotions and things like that, but we didn't kind of delve super, super deep into the spiritual, what I call woo-woo stuff. but I realized I kind of had to because people needed that additional information to get better. And so I ended up embarking on how, figuring out how we can get people better. I learned the emotion code and the body code, loved the system, and learned about, spirits, dark spirits, light spirits, angels, how they can help us. And kind of went down that rabbit hole and ended up, creating my own light medicine practice, if you will, online. And now teach people how to use these tools, divine muscle testing, being able to pull negative energy out of their system and then add positive energies in and test, see what's going on with each person. So I'm, ended up teaching and training a whole new healing modality I call the Topican healing method. And so since then, wrote some more books. And my latest one is Sensitivity is Your Superpower, How to Harness Your Gifts, Fulfill Your Purpose, and Create a Life of Joy. And that's all about, harnessing that sensitivity to be used like for the positive, whether that be weather magic. We've moved hurricanes, storms, all sorts of things, or it could be intuitive impressioning, like dipping into certain situations and feeling them out before it happens, so you kind of can make better decisions. Transformational telepathy, for example, being able to communicate positive things to another person, or even figure out what they're thinking, and also communicating to them, forgiveness, that kind of thing, so you get a better relationship. So I'm super excited that book has come out. And so we just keep expanding, connecting with people, learning more about these sensitive souls and how we can best help them.
Wow, that is absolutely fascinating. So first of all, thank you so much for sharing and being vulnerable to share all of that information that you did. And I just have to say, it's so interesting, like, the whole concept that this is woo-woo, like we are a spiritual being. And yet, so many people still come at it from this perspective. And I mean, even with us in block therapy, we very much took a very practical approach, as much as in my world, this is, very profound in the spiritual realm, yet I don't talk about that so much because we're delivering it in that more of a practical sense. Then people dive in and then they have their own experiences with that. But so if I were to come to you and I had, multiple issues, can you just quickly, I obviously you don't want you going into like the full bore of your program, but explain sort of the scenario, how that would look if I was needing your assistance for healing.
Oh yeah, thanks for asking. So some people, when by the time they come to me or any of my certified practitioners for the Topican healing method, oftentimes they've been to multiple people already, and even naturopaths and, even spiritual healers. And we find a lot of them who are highly sensitive people, who I call sensitive souls, actually have a higher spiritual responsibility, meaning that sometimes they need to know more details before things will heal or even automatically heal. They just need to know something. And so that's where the Topican healing method is really helpful, because what we do is we align to source, or people will call that the 0 point field or the singularity, or God, and we align our frequency to that frequency, and then we can do what I call divine muscle testing, using our body to get yes, no answers. There's multiple different mechanics on how you can do that. And then we ask very, very specific, high quality questions to get the answers we want. And we can even ask if we're allowed to know, because sometimes I like to ask things about the pandemic and God's like, you're not allowed to know yet. You just need to experience things. I'm like, okay, fine. But the neat thing is we get to know a lot. And so I've kind of cataloged some of the common things over the many, many years and thousands of healing sessions that I've done with people. And it's very specific. So I actually have created, for the healing method, a bunch of charts. We have a chart for negative frequencies that are common that we can delete or pull out, positive frequencies that people often need or aren't connected to, we can download, and then additional information. Like a lot of times it's like the person may need to know what their soul mission is. So we have a way of extracting that foundational soul mission, because sometimes they just need to connect the dots of why they're here and who are they. So if somebody came to me, with a symptom or constellation of symptoms, then we would actually ask, we would do that alignment, and then we do the asking, like what's caused, for example, what's causing or contributing to this constellation of symptoms. And then we would ask the charts to say, hey, is there something in the charts that would be helpful? We can ask how many questions, like how many things are there that's causing or contributing to this? How many do we actually need to consciously know about? And if we don't actually need to know all of them, we can actually do a blanket activation. I call that a Toppan healing directive, where we just direct high frequency energies to do the healing for us. So we're more like directors than healers, if you will, if you're, semantically, because it's like we have lots of spirit team members, if you will, that can help out, that can contribute. So we don't always have to do the heavy lifting, but we have to ask and we have to be in alignment so they can do this easier for us. Sorry, my phone's ringing and I don't know why. Nobody ever calls me until now. So I'm just going to keep pressing this button until they go away. Maybe not. All right, where's my husband when I need him? Okay. As I digress. So it's really neat. Like, for example, we had, and sometimes because I'm a medical doctor, I can connect what I know in, the field and actually check things out. Like, for example, I had like several examples, but there's an example of a woman that had Hashimoto's thyroiditis and another woman who had Graves' disease. So that inflammation, these women had inflammation of their thyroids. So we'll take the one with the Graves' disease. And she went to her doctor, and doctor referred her to an endocrinologist. Now, interestingly, there were quite a few specialists. We live in a small town, so she had to, drive 2 hours to Burlington to get to the specialist. And I said, well, let's see who is the best fit for you. So she's like, that's great. So we went online and we saw all the doctors' names and we just did divine muscle testing. And we said, this person, no, definitely not that person, and we were able to say who's the most compatible, and we got a score out of 100%. So nobody was 100%, but there was somebody at least that was like high 70s, meaning that more than likely she would work well with that person. Unfortunately, that person was not available, and she decided, and I did not know, to go to the other person that I scored low because she was impatient. She wanted, something to have some answers. So without me knowing, she actually went to see this other person. And she had a horrible experience. This person made her feel guilty, said, you cannot heal this naturally. You have to get your thyroid cut out or irradiated. There's no other choice. It's never going to heal on its own. And she went out of the office crying. And, then I found out that that's what I said, really? And she goes, oh, it wasn't the one you said I should go to, and she had this horrible experience. And then I said, okay, well, are you willing to do the work? And she said, I'll do anything. I really don't want to do radiation. I don't want to cut my thyroid out and lose it. I said, okay, it's going to be work. So we worked on all sorts of things, diet, and we just kept I said, if you have symptoms, sometimes you may have to use medication if necessary, temporarily, but let's do Toppan healing. Let's see what's going on. So we just released and healed layers and layers and layers of things, that were in the chart. And I'd see over 2 weeks, we'd check her labs, and her lab just started getting better and better and better. So to this day, she never had to cut out her thyroid. She hasn't had to do radiation. Her thyroid's pretty much back to normal. She's living a normal life. She's still on, a fairly strict diet, meaning, whole food diet, no junk food, in her case, gluten-free. She says it works best for her, but, she could have lost her thyroid had she not listened to herself. So there's lots of really interesting things that we can do in energy and light medicine when the body's ready to be able to support someone's self-healing.
Oh, that's a fantastic process. And I would feel that like it's so, as much as it's work, it's calming because you're on a path and that there's like with every step, you're going to feel improvements. Unlike, other approaches where, you go under the knife and you don't necessarily know what the result is. You don't know how your body's going to respond. And then you're going to be left with less than what you started with. And that's somewhat terrifying for, I think, a lot of people to consider having something removed. I certainly, wouldn't do that by choice now if I had another option. I know you talk a lot about vibration and fascia and consciousness and light. Can we kind of dive into this topic, because we love the fascia topic, and I think that it's going to be a wonderful interaction, because we approach it from our perspective and you approach it from your perspective, and I know that we're going to have some really cool topics to meet in the middle here.
Yeah, I think fascia is like one of the most exciting organs, if you will, in the whole body. I know when people talk about the skin being the largest organ in the body, I always say, I argue and say, no, it's not. Fascia is the largest organ in the body. And fascia is fascinating because, as a medical doctor, but also an acupuncturist, and, mentioned that before, but now that I'm retired, but as an acupuncturist, they were always wondering, like, how does this whole meridian thing work? How does it work? And what I realized is what was like, wow, these meridian channels are actually in the cleavages, of the fascia. The fascia wraps around everything, bone and muscle and blood vessels and everything like that. And so the highway is actually, there's like a crystalline liquid crystal fluid in the fascial layers, and that's where the energy travels, and that's where the meridians are. Now, some meridians, it doesn't look like it's in between because it's on a trigger point or something like that, but without fascia, acupuncture wouldn't work. Let's put it that way. Fascia is so intensely interesting and incredible. And, Kathy Homeyer talks about it being, part of that crystalline light body. I'm not saying it right, but, she has an explanation of how that works. So I think it's really important for us to take care of our fascia, to eat well, for our fascia, because that's where the light comes in, if you will. And that's how we distribute, this light and process it through the body. So at some point, maybe we'll have to do some sort of this is information that's still coming, but maybe we'll have to do some sort of fascia telesummit or something, to find all the experts of fascia in the whole world and get together and do a powwow.
That would be very cool. And I love the thing that you said about, obviously, the skin is the largest organ. In my book, we reference the fact that the fascia is the skin of every cell, essentially connecting every other cell. So it really is the skin of the whole entire body. And the way that I see the whole crystalline structure, it's when there is space, when every cell is situated exactly where it is, then there's nothing blocking or tightening and imposing that proper flow, so that we can be that light body, and every cell can be fully oxygenated to defy gravity, in a sense, so we can float through life, which we are dense bodies here.
Well, I think, I don't have like proof for it, but like you mentioned about how things spiral. And I think that there's so many processes in the body that are the Fibonacci, sacred geometry, spirals, things like that. So I think that healthy fascia has sacred geometry structures in it. And then when it's not healthy, it gets distorted. So I think it's really important for us to, work on that and get it better. One of the ways where I use Topican healing often, just because I love asking questions, is sometimes I'll take your your wonderful membership, and I'll say, well, which one of these classes would be for my highest and greatest good today, right? And it'll be not necessarily one that I logically think I should do next, but it might one day be like scalp. I'm like, oh, okay. All right, today is scalp. And the next day it might be psoas, or, and it's very interesting because that's where you can use divine muscle testing and another process or teaching and be able to integrate these things so you get the best out of it. And that's what I found really, really helpful.
I just think muscle, I'm sorry, Quinn, you go ahead.
No. Just like, yeah. Cause on like the muscle testing, you may have mentioned this earlier. Do you teach other people how to do muscle testing, or just exactly what you're explaining? Because that's really, really cool, because rather than being very logical about something, you can more so ask it out to the universe and receive the answer that you actually need, because being logical can kind of just give you wrong information because you're too much up here. So right. Is there like any course or a book or something that does teach you how to muscle test or connect?
Yes, actually that is, now we just teach one method of the multiple mechanics. But in the Sensitivities or Superpower book, that's one of the chapters, divine muscle testing. So it's very detailed because I found with highly sensitive people, sometimes they have a couple of other checkups they need to do. Sometimes because they're so sensitive, sometimes they're running other people's energies through their own body. We call that proxying. And there's ways in which in the clinic I used to check people. For example, I had this young man who was having this chronic neck pain. But the weird thing is he was only maybe 15 years old, but he acted like he was an 80-year-old hypochondriac grandmother. Like he kept bugging his parents, you need to take me to doctor, I need a CAT scan. And then the next thing, I need an MRI. The next thing, I need blood tests. There's something wrong. I have a tumor. And what 14-year-old guy does that, right? His parents were like, just like, oh, they love him, but it's like, I don't know what to do with them. So last ditch effort, come see this acupuncturist, right? So that's me. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, he's 14. Please God, don't give me something too weird, because he's gonna walk out the door. So the first thing happens is that I do these tests. I'll call him Mike. Okay, so I do a manual muscle test, and the reason we do that with an outstretched arm in the clinic is so I can demonstrate to them, because I can actually do remote muscle testing with people using my body and just connecting to their energy field. If 3,000 miles away, it still works. But since I had him in the office, and since he was, 14, I wanted just to show him the difference between a yes and a no on his body. So we did that, and a yes was a yes, a no was a no. Yes is strong, no is weak. The muscle actually gives way because the circuit actually breaks when you say no, and then they go weak temporarily. So the next test we do for proxying is I have them say their name. Normally, when they say their name, say, my name is Mike, their muscle test is strong. My name is something other than Mike, or my name is not Mike, it'll go weak. Well, for him, he goes weak on my name is Mike. So I'm like, oh boy. All right. So I thought, well, he's not reversed because a yes was correct and a no was correct. So, okay. I said, okay, so let's try say my name is something other than Mike. He went strong. And I've had issues in the past with other people where they have a ghost attachment to them. Now I know this family, and I thought maybe this is what's happened, because he did have a baby. He did have this grandmother and baby brother die in a horrific car accident not that long ago. So I tried the baby brother's name. I tried the grandmother's name. Wasn't either of them. I'm like, okay. So I thought, okay. So I just asked the universe, I said, is there something or someone attached to him? And the answer was yes. And I'm like, is this person was human, spirit, And so long story short, it was a ghost. And I said, well, when? So that's another great quality question we ask in divine muscle testing when you're sophisticated enough. And yes, there was a course on it as well. We asked when. So when did this happen? It was when he was 2. I said, well, hey, Mike, anything happened to you when you were 2? Did you get hurt, head injury, anything like that? Nope. I was like, okay. I said, well, I'm getting that there is a ghost attached to you in the back of your neck. That's where he had the pain. And we figured out, the person was 80-something-year-old lady, happened to be there. Supposedly he got injured, and she was like, oh, you poor dear, and attached to him, trying to help him. Not somebody who was trying to hurt him, and she just was, didn't heal, if you will, completely. So she was still in this plane and didn't move on. And he happened to be there timing wise. So he just thought I was completely nuts. Right. And I was like, okay, well, I'm probably never gonna see him again. So, I do the extraction, we heal the ghost, we do some acupuncture, and we make another appointment. I'm fully not expecting him to show up at all. So mom calls me and she goes, OMG, you said 2. And I said, yeah. Mike didn't say not anything. She goes, no. We rushed him to the hospital. He fell, hurt his head, and we thought he was dead. Rushed him to the hospital. He was fine. But he had a head injury. And sometimes when that shock happens, it's like they literally go out of their body temporarily. And so that's when that grandma, if you will, came in. And so that hypochondria was all her stuff. he was just expressing her stuff. And that's why when we did the muscle test, if I knew her name, we would have tested strong. We just couldn't figure out what her name was. I didn't want to go through all the Gertrudes and Gladyses and whatever names, like it would have taken forever, because this is someone he didn't know. So, so mom was like, that really resonated, like that actually happened at age 2. So the next appointment he comes and I'm like, you showed up. He's like, yes. I said, well, honestly, I didn't think you were going to show up again because the first appointment was so weird. He said, yeah, I know. I wasn't actually going to show up, but I feel a lot better. So there must be something that, so we did some more acupuncture and saw him, I think, twice, and that was it. He was back to him. His mother called and said, I'm so appreciative. This is the first time we've seen him smile in years. He was back to being a teenager, no more hypochondria. He did well in school. Like the pain was gone. It was awesome. So, this muscle testing thing can be really handy sometimes when you get accurate answers. And we do teach that in the book. Also, I have a course just about intuitive information. It's called the Intuitive Decision-Making Roadmap, where we go really dive deep into muscle testing and other ways of intuiting, such as internal muscle testing, where you can just feel energy in your body, a yes and a no in your body, and then intuitive impressioning, which is also in the book, another technique where you can literally dive into a place, person, thing, or situation, feel it out ahead of time, and then be able to make decisions.
That is so cool. I just want to quickly share an experience I had about 15 years ago. I was really struggling, even though I was doing a lot of work, personal work, body work, whatever the work was, I was really struggling to feel happy or joy. And I ended up connecting with a spiritual healer here in Winnipeg. And he did some stuff with me. And now I'm lying on his table. And he basically said that I have an 18th century murderer lodged in my gut that is stealing my joy. Now, upon first hearing this, I'm just like, okay, but I couldn't figure out what was blocking me. And I knew it was something beyond what I could rationally understand. So I'm an open person. So I'm like, okay, well, what are you going to do? So he goes through this process where he literally like brings his face down toward my liver and he goes, and he like does this sucking action, doesn't physically touch me, but he's doing this near me. And then he blows it into this paper bag and he does that like 3 or 4 times. And then he ties the bag and he takes it literally outside. And I'm like, okay, well, here's the money. And so I go home and I'm just kind of trying to process this, thinking, wonder what's going to happen. So 3 a.m, I wake up with the worst abdominal cramps I have ever experienced, this intense pain. And I am keeling over. I don't know what to do with myself. I go to the bathroom and out of my butt comes acid, like just acid. And then boy, did I feel good. But my waist the next day was 2 inches smaller.
Wow. That's incredible.
Yeah. And I wish I knew that, the whole muscle testing thing, because I could have asked, is there an 18th century murderer living in my gut?
Well, and sometimes they do attach to specific organs, like ghosts and things like that. I've had many different, over the years. This one woman who was a reporter of all things just wanted to do an article on acupuncture, right? And she ends up having a ghost. And I'm like, oh my gosh. I'm like, she's not going to write that. So, it ended up, it was very embarrassing because I don't know this woman. And I said, did anybody die like in the last year in your family? Oh yeah, my dad died. And I'm like, okay, because I'm getting you're not you. And what's your dad's name? And we'll say it's Jerry. And she muscle tests yes for Jerry. Wow. She's a yes for Jerry. I'm like, okay, well, where is Jerry attached? Vagina. And here I am with this reporter, and I have to tell her that he's attached to her vagina. And I'm like, so did your dad have any like problems down there? Oh, he had prostate cancer. That's what he died of.
Oh my goodness.
Oh, that makes sense. So then I tell her and then we release it and she just cried and she just felt this something shifted. She wasn't expecting anything, right? We weren't even really treating her per se. She just was interviewing me and that was it. And she just had this profound experience. And she wrote about, she didn't obviously tell everybody in the paper she had, it goes attached to her vagina, but, wrote it well so that, people could get a gist of energy and things like that. But Deanna, thank you so much for sharing that very personal story. That's amazing. That's incredible.
Well, and what's so interesting is that like it's immediate. Like if we can actually tap into this kind of healing, like, you know, like I was struggling for so long to try to figure out what's blocking me. And when you don't understand, you simply don't understand. Again, like we think it's woo-woo, but it's real. And so many of us are struggling and suffering with things that we don't even have a concept of how to address, but yet, you know, these things address this. So
right, yeah, we have, that's all these different facets of beautiful tools. You know, block therapy is a tool, and topic healing is a tool, and there's all these different tools that complement each other, so people can, you know, heal faster than ever before and be able to revitalize themselves and feel better. And you know, the topic healing method is really good for answering the question why. And there are a lot of other healing methods that are wonderful. They just don't answer that question. So you might do energy healing with someone and you're done and you're like, well, what's gonna happen? And they're like, I don't know. You know, whatever's for the highest grade is good. And you have no idea like what just happened, you know? For people that need to know why, because some people have a higher spiritual responsibility, they need to know why. Like some people need to know they're feeling the emotions of mass consciousness, and that's why they're so anxious all the time. And they need to know how to, you know, bolster their boundaries or how to clear what isn't theirs out of their energy field, because that's their level of responsibility. Then they actually have to know that that's what it is before they know how to handle it.
I know we're coming to our end very soon. Quinn, do you have anything you want to chat about or share?
I just love these conversations because it's so interesting, and just hearing, like, a lot of people are skeptical with these conversations. I'm not. Deanna and I are very open to all of these conversations, as you probably know. But like, I'm still trying to figure out a lot of things too, because I listen to a lot of different practitioners or healers and nutritionists even, that take the information from source or from elsewhere and is able to communicate this and say, this is what's going to heal you. But then it almost gets confusing to me at times, because I'm like, okay, so there's nutrition, food, something that you can ingest. Then there's block therapy, something that you can release, oxygenate, kind of pull out that way. But then there's ways where it's like, well, what if it's not either of those that's causing the issue, and it is something like this? So like, how does somebody know? Sorry, I don't want to like prompt a long question here, but
That's okay.
How does somebody know if there is something attached to them or not, even if they've tried a bunch of different modalities? And I get, again, like, yes, it's through the muscle testing, but like, even before you get to that phase, like, is there like a precursor almost to understand what's going on before you actually get to the muscle testing phase?
Well, you know, it's we use muscle testing as a wonderful tool. At some point, you know, people will just have direct knowing, and a lot of times the people that do the practice, the topic healing method, especially our practitioners, over time, they just do it so often that they already have the answer before they ask the question.
Right.
But a lot of times it's the quality of the question. So, for example, what you're talking about, one of the things we do is in topic healing, we have these protocols. So one of the protocols we have is called the empathic assessment. And what that is figuring out what proportion of that symptom, whatever it is, say somebody has a pain, what proportion of that symptom is actually foundationally a physical issue. Right. Sometimes it is. Sometimes it's like heavy metal toxins or, you know, chemical toxin from GMO foods or something like that. So sometimes it's physical, and that's in line 1 of, you know, guide 1, physical stuff. But what we do is we do the PMEESD protocol. So that's the empathic protocol. That's how much is, the empathic protocol is whose stuff is it? Sorry, 2 different protocols. I got mixed up. Let me back up. There is a PMEESD protocol, which is how much is physical, how much is mental, how much is emotional, how much is energetic, how much is spiritual, and how much is dimensional. We don't have enough time today to explain the dimensional part, but you get a proportion. And a lot of people have done a lot of really great work biologically, physically. By the time I see them, the physical number is like 5% left, you know? Maybe they did a lot of emotional work, and that might be 10% left. But energetic might be 75% left, because there's something that they don't know but they did all the physical modalities, like they did nutrition, they
Right.
did this, and they did the minerals and the biologicals and herbs and all that kind of stuff. And, or even, acupuncture might help the energetic for sure, but there could be spiritual components. And that's a really great way of doing that protocol, saying, well, how much is spiritual? How much is energetic? The empathic assessment is a different one where we ask, whose stuff is it? So say, Quinn, you woke up one day and you're just feeling, down or anxious or something like that.
Mhm.
So as a sensitive soul, we might go, well, gee, is this your stuff or not? Is this something that's ready to heal or not? So we would just say, what percentage of the symptom is, Quinn's stuff from this body and timeline? And we might get a percentage, say it's 5%. Then you're like, okay, 95%, not my stuff, right? And then we might ask, well, if it's not your stuff, whose stuff is it? And that could be your alternate self in another timeline. I have another book where I wrote a chapter called Alternate Self Syndrome, in the Evolutionary Healer book, is sometimes what's going on or has gone on in other timelines can affect us. It could be your soul destiny partner, who is sort of like somebody that you're here to help. I was soul destiny partners for Mother Earth. So if there was an impending nuclear war somewhere, I get to feel it in my body. And I was like, okay, whose stuff is it? Oh, Mother Earth. Okay, do you need something? And then so I would heal Mother Earth and my pain would go away. So, could be, someone else's stuff. And it could be, your brothers or your mother's. The most common in the last year or so is mass consciousness. As you can imagine, with the pandemic and the anxiety and the fear, so many sensitive souls are feeling everyone's stuff and they don't know. So we can actually check how happy their boundaries are. Again, PMESC, how happy their physical boundaries are, which is usually skin and gut, etc. Then there's emotional boundaries, mental boundaries, energetic boundaries, spiritual boundaries, and dimensional boundaries. And for a lot of people, they don't know or don't know how to muscle test. They don't know that they have that many boundaries and that they could be, they're like, I'm working on my boundaries, right? So their relationship boundaries they've been working on. So that might be decent, like 85, 95%. But we want all the boundaries to be 100%. And so we can quickly figure out through muscle testing what percentage and then show them how to, restore their boundaries. And some of that is in one of the chapters. It's called SOS Clearing in the Sensitivity to Superpower book. They can also use their Ascension 3 jewelry, which are infused with high frequency healing energies, and they just tell it what to do. So Quinn, you might say one day, you just go, if it's not my stuff, clear it and reboot all my boundaries.
Love it.
And then it already knows what you mean because it knows what I mean when I say that. Yeah. So you try it out and see how that feels.
100%.
And some people walk into a store and start feeling yucky because there's yucky stuff in the store. So you can go into the store and go, clear this store. Thank you. That's it. You don't have to do the fancy stuff.
So you were so generous to gift both Quinn and I these beautiful Ascension necklaces. So anytime I'm feeling off, I can just say, just go away.
Yeah, you can say, hey, whatever's causing or contributing to whatever I'm feeling, heal it or let me know what it is that I need to do. Right. Because it's like it's like a communication tool. It does the heavy lifting for you. You just need to ask. Now, in the Topicam healing method, we get a little bit more fancy. We actually teach directives and finding out the reason. But if you don't need to know the reason, because a lot of times you don't, you just know you don't feel good, right? And you can just say, okay, I don't feel good. Heal whatever is causing me not to feel good. Thank you. And then you're done. And then if that doesn't work, then you may need to do something else, or you may need to ask for something else. Sometimes it's like people go, okay, I want you to fix my husband. I'm like, okay, wait a second. Well, and it's not working. And I'm like, okay, well, how about this? You ask it to help your emotions about how you feel about your husband that you want fixed. And then they go, oh, I feel so calm and he's acting better. And I'm like, well, he's acting better because he's not responding to whatever emotions you're putting out, right? So it's sometimes there's a little nuance, but we do have a free 21-day mini course called the 21-day Ascension 3 Challenge. So anybody that wants to know, what we can do, including entity clearing, house clearing, stuff like that with the tool here, then that's a free course.
Oh, fantastic. I know we're running out of time here, and I think we'll have to have another conversation because you just kind of opened my brain to wanting to learn a whole bunch more from you. And Quinn, we'll be sharing everything below the video here for people that want to find Karen.
Yeah, so this will be on YouTube. So all information about Karen will be below the video. And again, Karen, you answered my question very, very well. That's exactly what I was asking. So that's very cool. Excited to keep in touch with you because I have more questions and maybe we just have to get you on soon again. So anyways,
Would love it.
beautiful. So yeah, make sure you like and subscribe to the YouTube channel. We'll be uploading these discussions with our very special guests when they come on. And that's all I have for today.
Thank you
Thank you
much,
so
Karen.
much. It's been great. Great connecting
You
with you both. Thank you for the opportunity.
definitely enlightened me. So we will continue this conversation. Thanks, everyone.